Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ellen. Today I thought we'd try something a little different again. I had bought this watercolor traveling pad from Strathmore, and I thought I'd go about painting something like a little sketch in there from a photograph that I took in the walk that I did the other day, and to show you how you can take a photograph and just change it up a little bit with the composition. See, I added some different elements in the front here and the bottom, like some ferns and a mushroom. Just want to show you how you can think outside the box composition wise. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section. Let me know if you're having struggled with composition and what to paint, and hopefully this tutorial helps you. I give the patrons the photograph that I took this from, but I show you the photograph and the painting. And if you're not familiar with Patreon, it's a place people go and support my channel. I have ad-free videos, traceables, reference photos, exclusive tutorials on Thursdays, and a live stream in the top tier once a month from me. You know, it's just a place where I give some added extra value, hopefully, to some people, and you can check it out right up here in the Dropbox on the right-hand corner. So hey guys, I'm gonna go over my supplies. Like I said, I have a new sketch pad, or I don't even call it sketch pad. It's a watercolor travel pad. That's the Strathmore. This is a different size. It's 100% cotton. Also, this is the 6x8. I had a bigger one, so it's not going to bleed like the arch paper, but you know, it's cotton, so it should do pretty well. It's got a little tooth, not much of a tooth. I have paper towels right here. I'll be using a couple of brushes, probably my Princeton 8 long round, maybe my Princeton 8 round. Play around with that. And I've got my paints here. I always go over the paints as I use them, and I have them always in the description box. Like I said, if you're a Patreon member, you get the photograph that I took for my walk in the woods. And I just want to show you like how you can take a photograph and like interpret it as like a sketch. Like I say, if you went somewhere and you didn't bring your art supplies, right? Actually, I didn't. And I want to paint this, but I'm not. It's kind of boring, right? To me, it's like just the woods, which is nice. So let's do something different. So I'll take just a regular pencil here. And I don't have to fill this whole page because I have the page. I don't have to fill it. This is what I call a vignette kind of style. So you can just kind of make a square within the square. Taking the pencil here, right? And from there, you know, I have my tree. I can still keep that main tree here if I want to, like right coming down here on the right hand side. And then you can see the road, well, the path kind of curves here, goes here, right? Just kind of pencil in. And then there's that big, another main tree right here, just kind of leaning in, just kind of doing a diagonal. Now, usually I give sometimes these traceables to my patrons, but sometimes I want you guys just to take the picture and interpret it yourself. I erased that little road because I'm seeing that the tree here, these other trees should be here, and the road should go back here a little more, right? And then come out here. So I have another tree here, and here, back here. I'm trying to get the main points of trees. There's a little one here. There's a group of them here, and there's one leaning here, right? I'm not gonna get everything in here. This whole section right here is all ferns. I did take a picture of just ferns. So it's just gonna be fuzzy greens. And so what I thought about when I'm talking about when I do this picture, you know, there's a shadow that's gonna come into play from this tree in here. And there's the road. I'm gonna erase this again. Again, think outside the box, right? Here's the box we have, it's basically road. This whole area to me seems like boring, right? So let's take the idea. We're gonna take the ferns that we have here, sketched. I'm just making these little marks. They're kind of wiggling and going this way and that way, and you can kind of sketch in the ferns. And then there's some trees back here. No need to have them perfect. Let's put something out of the box. So a fern, right? So I'm trying a pencil here, and you just kind of make the fern kind of come out of the box. Now, my little drawing was terrible here, but basically it's like a line. I like to paint the ferns, and you're just making these wiggles, and they kind of get bigger as they go out. right? So you picture the ferns are like in a triangle. I'm drawing the triangle for you, but erase that triangle, and then that's how you would paint out the leaves. So I would have a fern out here. Just gonna go back and pencil in here. Do my little fern where I put it out. Maybe have another one crisscrossing it. And then maybe here I'd put like a little mushroom. So a mushroom. I would do a curved line. A little curved line up here, like a half circle. And then a curved line out here and kind of connect it down here. Let's do a couple little mushrooms. You know, and then we'll play around with that. So I'm having like the emphasis of kind of like on this side and then going back and playing in here. Now, this is where you can either just go ahead and do all watercolor, or you can do gouache on top of the watercolor, because the gouache sits right on top. Kind of play with it in certain ways. These are the ideas that I come up with sometimes when I'm just playing around. So let's just grab some color here. And we got a lot of gray browns. And we got this red, you know, pathway. So we got some greens we got to make up. I use peacock blue and cadmium yellow deep for my greens. I did spray this, but it seems to be sitting there. So we got some light greens, some medium greens, some dark greens, right? The dark green, I always use a Prussian blue. This is the Prussian blue. And I mix up some yellow with that. Get a nice deep green. And then we have burnt umber, which is nice brown. And this color called neutral tint, which is like almost like a blackish blue. So I mix the burnt umber and the neutral tint and get a nice deep dark brown. Remember, this is kind of like a little sketch. Doesn't have to be perfect, right? And then for this, this is like a terracotta color. So I could use my cadmium red light, right? Or you can mix up, you know, put a little yellow with that to make it orange. Add a little burnt umber. And you have this nice terracotta color. You can add some more red to it. Right? It almost looks pinky. So maybe if it was, you've used a magenta instead, that would work too. So you can use magenta and a little burnt umber and a little yellow. And you get that kind of forest red pathway. I think I want to make mine a little bit pinker. To me, it seems like a pinky red. It's always good to have some scrap close by, but this paper is not going to be the same. It would be better if I scrapped it. It's a little dark, but obviously if you get water in it, water it down. Later, maybe I'll add a little orange, yellow to it to make it a little more orange. That's how I kind of match it. It doesn't have to be perfect either, by the way. And then it's more red again. Keep playing around with the color. Yeah, good enough for me. So I'm just gonna kind of wash in. If we're gonna do all watercolor in this kind of scenario, I would kind of have to work around my lovely fern, or I just do a nice light green in here, like a nice little wash. See, I'm just dabbing in the green. And this paper is not like an arch paper, so it's going to work differently. So I'm just kind of washing in this green. It's kind of a yellow green. I'm going to add some of the deeper, darker greens. See, I'm just kind of tip-tapping it. You can see the movement. It's a lot of green in here. It's all green, 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 right? And then you're having some of these dark elements of the trees. You can really just start to just play with, you have a pencil of all the greens. I mean, you have a pencil of all the trees, so you can just start to play. And you know, over in here, it's fairly light. It's just a few greens. I'm tip-tapping my colors. I have my 3 greens over here, right? I'm leaving this all white. I'm not putting a blue sky in. You can get that darker green, like a forest green. I'm adding a little more Prussian blue to it. It's kind of bleeding that. As you know, there's a tree here. There's another tree here. There's some light green in here. Oops. So this is going to be dark. You don't have to worry about if you painted over on that, because you're going to paint on top of that the nice dark color. So get some medium greens. The dimension in here is a little bit darker. You don't have to separate the greens in between the trees if you want to kind of do that for purposes to see where they are. But this is like a sketch. So you're just gonna go loose. See, I'm just tip tapping it, the greens. This got a really yellow, and it's not really yellow. Going back in and add the peacock and the yellow in here, getting more of a vibrant green. I'm just doing my little tip taps. This is supposed to be meant to be a sketch and nothing serious. Just a little bit of fun. Just kind of putting in the color here. It's always good to also just squint your eyes, and then you can see the values, right? You squint your eye, you can see right in here, this is really kind of dark. It's light green, medium green in here, and then it gets really dark around these trees. So add that deeper, darker green right where the base of the tree is, in here. The same thing is out in here, right? And then there's some greens back here that are pretty dark, where they meet the other greens. Simple, like, I'm gonna wash in just a simple light green in here. And you can show some of the terracotta road. But for this forest part, I'm just gonna tip tap these little leaves in the distance. See? Tippy. I'm using the number 8 round. And up here, I'm not gonna really see much of it because I've kind of cut it off like right here, if you noticed. So I'm not gonna really see much of all those. Maybe the top of them. So for the little leaves, you can just do these little tip taps. And if it comes out of the square, that's fine. Or you can do a thing called, you just roll your brush. If it's drier paint, so you can tap it on the paper towel and kind of roll it. But I like the tip tap sometimes. It's a little better. Get those greens in here. Now, if they're going above over the trees, you're gonna have to do that first and then paint in the brown, like in this section right here. And out in here. I'm just going to keep building the greens as they dry. Just add some deeper green coming out in here. Remember, it's a sketch. Now I do have a mushroom that I played around with here, and since this is a terracotta kind of road, I wouldn't do like a nice beautiful like red polka dot mushroom. You might want to keep it in the brown tones because it's not going to stand out. Or we could do a little gray one too, so I'm going to take the brown burnt umber itself. Just make my little mushroom, my little cutie mushroom. This paper isn't like Arche, so it's not the best wet on wet paper. I think it's a really good, like it is, a travel journal, a study kind of pad. So I'm just going to put that same little color that I put in the top on the bottom here. And for the other one, I'm going to make this one more of a gray little mushroom. So I'm going to grab some of my neutral tint, water it down a little bit, and just make this little gray mushroom. So it is cotton paper, but it isn't like I said Arche. So you're going to have to do more like hard edge type of design. Now, I'm not really happy about that. I'm lifting up the paint, make it a little bit lighter. All right, let's paint in like the fern here. This guy. So you can just do like start with just taking your brush. I'm still using number 8, by the way, and do that the little stem, right? And then from there, grabbing these darker colors. So it's just a wiggle movement. I'll show you real close. Remember, you're thinking of the triangle that's bigger on the bottom, small on the top. Wiggle, wiggle, and they get a little bit bigger as they go, and you can kind of like see I'm kind of curving it. They have a little point in the end. A simple wiggle, and it looks like a fern. And of course, you got to do it the opposite way. See, I'm just kind of wiggling and kind of curving the actual leaf. And then as it's drying, or if it's still a little wet, you can add a little more of this Prussian blue and yellow that's not wet. Get a little bit darker still. And get a little darker on the stem. Remember, it's a study. It's not supposed to be this perfect painting. So what you do is like a little, it's kind of like a bigger than a thumbnail. Right? And you can get the green. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. See how I just wiggled that? And now my original sketch, I had them crisscrossing bigger ones. So I can kind of clean this up by filling it all in. I have multicolors going on in here. I'll leave it that way. And then do another one. Boom. Kind of here. Like we talked about, crisscrossing. It can go over my little mushroom. I'm just playing around here. Going back and adding that medium green. And the little ones up top. And you can kind of curl it. Whoop. Now, because we're going to still paint this pathway. This all kind of did. See how the bleed is a little bit different? So now the pathway. We've got that reddish color. I add a little more green to make it a little more brown. I'm going to water it down a little bit. So now it's a little more reddish brown. And we're going to do a light wash in first. And a little more red color. And we have that shadow in here. So we need to have the darker tone. So it's a little dark kind of here. Right? You see that? And it gets a lot lighter in here. So we grab some water and we water this part down. So this part should be a little bit lighter. I'm going to go in between my little design that I did with the fern. I can remember it's just a little sketch. So if you were out in the woods and you did have this little pad in your paint, that's all you need to do. Just filling this in. Now you can see the walkways come out this way. It would have just been this whole red path, which is fine. Now you're going to just paint in between the little ferns, and you don't have to be perfect. Just get right in there. You could get a little bit darker so they highlighted more. Just right in here. It just adds a little interest, right? Fill this all in. I'm going to mix up in another, and I'm going to put some of that red in here because it kind of peeks through in the woods. Just be careful putting it in between the little leaves. Especially wait till it's dry because it's going to bleed, and you know, red and green make brown. So if you want a brown kind of situation going. See, now we just kind of fill this in. Boom. We're just going to finish up real quickly a little sketch. I'm not going to make this perfect. I'm going to have to go back in and make some more color. So I'm just going to mix some magenta, a different umber. Right, maybe a touch of yellow. So even darker still. So it's nice and light. I'm going to keep it that way. In the meantime, let's get some trees going. So we have that burnt umber color mixed with the neutral tint. This one's just a really dark tree. Just going to go put that right in here. And that tree will frame the edge. Now normally your eye would just go right to this tree because it's so dark and all you see is on the right side. That's what I'm saying, composition is everything. But we're going to balance it by adding the dark trees in here. Now these are a little more gray than this, but so you can have more neutral tint watered down. These trees look a little more gray and brown. I might add a little burnt umber though. And it gets a little darker in the back. Boom. And there's that other tree here. So he's kind of right in front of that green. Really concentrated. And then we had another tree here. It's like a green, brown, oh, excuse me, neutral tint, brown. Oh, Mondays are so fun. And then we had the cluster back here, right? Again, I'm not worrying that if it's brown or black. I just want to get the essence of the trees clustering. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then we had that leaning tree right here. The leaning tree of Pisa. Now it was a little lighter up the top because the sun was peeking through. So I'm going to water down my brush and lift some of this paint here. And get a little lighter. Because remember, it's really bright in here. And these just need to be a little bit lighter up here too. And they were more gray. I made them brown, but they were more gray. It's okay. But they were darker on the bottom, as you see. Right, and then there was dark ones back here. And then the branches coming off that. So we're getting the feel of the forest here. I would put more green in here because it definitely was filled in more. It wasn't as light as this is. But we're going to play around with just like filling in some of the trees just to get us grounded in where they go. And we go back and we'll add some of the green. There's a lot of trees back here. There was a little kind of skinny little tree back in here. All right, and you see it's dark, and this one was kind of peeking through right here. And there was another one behind this one. It's kind of dark. All right. And then you go in and grab the greens again, right? And get the deeper green with the Prussian blue. And then we had the medium green with the peacock and the yellow. So again, there's a vibrant yellow, medium green in here. And I'll just do this tip-tappy kind of thing. Just kind of filling it in now. Right, the spots that shouldn't, this part should still be light and white, but down in here, no. Let's just fill those in really loosely. Get rid of some of that white because you really didn't see any white in that section. You did up in here. Again, what helps is if you squint your eye, and then you have the darker green back here. So I'm adding some of that Prussian blue with some brown. Kind of tapping it in here. It's still kind of light in here, and it got a little bit dark in here. And see, I'm just going to tip, tap, tip, tap, tap. Now all these ferns are kind of going this way, so I'm going to make a movement of my brush, kind of like they look like grass, but they're ferns. So that light color, and then I'll just take the darker ones and kind of go like this, kind of angling it. If you want to get real technical and detailed, you can put like another little tiny fern down here, and that's where the Princeton 8 long round comes in handy. I'm going to go back in here. I'm just going to fill in some greens. And remember, it's just a sketch. This doesn't have to be a perfect woodland scene. Just want to get the feel of it. I like the imperfect little sketches. So we kept everything kind of in the box, except this guy. And then you can just go in here and add little, you can see the little faint, I'll water my color down, little faint greens in the background, maybe a little more bluish, so I'll add a little peacock. Maybe a little more peacock. Blue green, kind of back here, peeking through. Okay, so we fill some of that in, and then we're going to go back to that little road. So we have a very light color. We're going to go back to our terracotta, a little bit thicker, darker, right? And fill in all those little shadow areas that we didn't get it. So it's kind of a darker here. There's the shadow of the tree kind of going here. A little couple of shadows out here. And then, of course, it's darker all through in here. Maybe add a little more brown. It was a little reddish. So you got to be careful kind of going in between the fern again. Just fill that all in so it stands out. And back down in here. Right, and get that shadow. I'm not going to put in all those little, you can put in like the little sticks and roads if you want to. Like grab some neutral tint and just put the little marks of like the little tree branches and whatnot that broke. I'm mixing a little burnt umber too. There's tons of them. So you just put a few in. Like there's a stump right here, but I don't want it in my picture. I just don't like it. Right? And actually, I just realized, I'm looking at the photograph, I'm thinking this is a tree all the way down. Actually, the tree stopped right here. This was a shadow. And bad for me not looking at the photograph properly. So what I can just do is fix that by adding in the tree stump here. And then the legs. And that's my mistake, but hilarious. Because my eyes weren't paying attention. So this should kind of be red, really kind of red, but it's just a really dark shadow. I could lift up some of it so you can see more of the stump of the tree. And there you go. And then can add some of this terracotta color because it's a shadow. There was a little green in here too. I'm gonna just take some of my green, put little doodabs of green kind of poking through around here. And then you grab that burnt umber neutral tint mix and just wiggle in a little, you know, the trees, little tree stumps. And then I can put little marks of like the little broken branches that were out here. I'm not going to get too technical on it. And like I said, it's a sketch. I'm doing a little tap, little tippy taps. I'll go back to my little cute little mushroom and I'll add a darker value of the burnt umber. Kind of go like this on the side, a little bit on this edge, and then even darker still under the little hood here. So what I did was I added some neutral tint and some burnt umber. And see, I can go back in my paper towel, I'm taking my brush off. It's a little too dark, but that's fine. And then put a little dark under this one. And just take the tip of your brush, kind of outline darker color, the little mushroom, and you get a little darker again on this one side. Right? If you wanted to make little lines, to be decorative, don't be like, you know, you don't have to be, oh, there's a realistic mushroom. It can be fun. You can add little patterns to it, little stripes, why not? There's no rules. And then I can take some green, so I'm going to mix my yellow and the peacock blue and get this nice bright green, very thick, like minimal water. And I can play around with adding in some greenery, just simple greenery. Just make it interesting, right? Because it's thick with minimal water, it almost works like a gouache. I can get really, go right over my painting. Right, even the light green color. This is a little wet here, so it's kind of bleeding. No bleed. And we can go back over a little fern here when it dries. Add some bright yellow, green. And then in here, where the ferns, this is where you would get like maybe, I would say Princeton 8, but I can do my number 6. Concentrated paint, minimal water. And you can make small little detail ferns. So I'm going to grab Prussian blue and the yellow, make a deep green. I use my number 6. Same thing we did here, lines, and just do the wiggles. Just make a couple of realistic looking ferns in here. Kind of going over, crisscrossing. Don't have to do this, it's just a little detail. To me, this brush is kind of still tiny. I would probably grab the 8. You can barely even see these little ferns. You might have to take some time doing them, but you get the gist of it. you can take this deep dark color and go underneath these ones that we did in the front, just to highlight each little leaf so they stand out more. So I'm just wiggling like one line underneath. You see that? You can just do it with Prussian blue itself. Just doing it on the bottom. And then we have an interesting little design, right? I don't know if you really can see these ones in here, but it's fun to play with. Adding a little bit of ferns in here, kind of crisscrossing, or just even grasses if you want to just put some grasses in, because it kind of looks like grass. And I'll just add a little couple, looks like grass, little doodads like this, right? Little branches coming out too. The green. Now I just messed up my little stump here, but that's okay. It happens to the best of us. I'll wiggle this back up. I don't know why when I looked at the photograph it looked like that was the tree on the bottom. No one would know. I'm going in and adding in some deeper color in here and back here. So there you have it. Now I can make this mushroom a little more interesting again. Like I said, you can add some little dots. Get even darker if you want to the color. The shadows. And if this terracotta seems too light, go back in and add, you know, I think it looks fine. Maybe the shadow a little bit darker. But this just is something I just saw. I'm gonna add a little more here. It's so funny that I thought that was a tree and it was a shadow. It's just big one. Doesn't it look like that though? I think so. And then you could go in here and add a little more color if you want. So that part looks really light from the sun. And this part is a little more shadowed in the shade. And this is my little sketch, right? So this is like brighter than the actual one. I might go back in, add a little browner tones to it. I don't know. I think it's fine. I don't think you have to get so technical because it's a sketch, right? If you wanted to, maybe this is too late, you go one more pass and then make that even darker. If you feel like it's too late. And let this dry and then go even darker with the shadow. It depends on how you want to do it. This is what I would do, my little sketch. That's what I decided to do. And then I put that away and say, ah, and add some like light green. Touches. If you can't really see your ferns, leaves, just make it lighter. Go on top. And then try and fill the color in between, more in between those spaces so it really pops out. And that is our little travel sketchbook tutorial today. So this is what you do when you take a photograph and just find, like, okay, it's the woods. Let's take some elements of the woods. Maybe you could add a little snail in here. Whatever you think of the woods, you know, it doesn't have to be just exactly the picture that you saw. You can add more elements. I might kind of fix and tweak it. Like I said, I might fix and go and fill in all the little spaces in between here. So then you really can see the fern kind of popping. This is where you figure out how to be creative. And then the little mushrooms, I could add more. I could add a little colored one over here. I'm just trying to help you guys think outside the box when you don't know what to paint. Like you take a picture of something and you add some more elements that are different, or pull out an element, like we said, the fern here. You could have just put ferns all around, like for a border. It can be kind of pretty in an oval. I'm giving you ideas, but you see what I'm saying. So I hope this helped when you're like, what do I paint? I like the scenery, but it seems kind of boring, you know? So things you can add. One little trick I talk about all the time, if you don't have a lot of gouache, you just have white, you can just mix it with your green. Grab some yellow in here and some white. And you can highlight, see, I feel like my ferns. Sorry, I'm trying to zoom in. I kind of too dark and not seeing them. You can just go on top and you can highlight. See that little white, light green? Just wiggling it on the fern. Just make us a little pop. So if you don't have a lot of color, you only have, you probably have a lot of gouache. If you've been following me, like white gouache. This is something you can do to pop it. So you can do a little light color on top and a dark color on top, the bottom, just by adding a little white to your greens. See that? Because it's gouache, it's going to sit right on top of the color. You can even try and add it to the darker. It might come up a little funky, like pale color. But if you actually have gouache, well then there you go. You can just go right on top of that. See, I've added that color. It just goes right over there. Add a little more white. Just gonna pop, pop. See how it pops right out? Boom. You can really see it. That's why you have that darker color on the bottom. You know, take a little white, do a little white on the mushrooms, and you can see them light from the sun. So there you go. So if you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section. Let me know if you like this kind of idea of like when you think outside the box of like painting your sketch and then you're just painting an element from it and going outside of it. It's kind of fun. It's kind of like a vignette style. And don't mind my little shadow here. It does look like a tree though, doesn't it? And then just go back in, and if you, like I said, with the white gouache, you can kind of do little dabs in areas that you thought were like too dark. You can kind of tap, tap, and get them a little bit lighter if you wanted to. And then, of course, with the dark, it's easy just to go back in and fill in that. And, you know, I'll just keep playing with this a little bit. Sometimes it's just good to like brush down and be done with it because it's just a sketch. So I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you have any questions, again, leave them in the comment section. Let me know if you like something like this, like learning how to do things outside of the photographs you take like for a composition. All right, guys, take care. Have a fantastic day, and I'll speak to you soon.